Okay. Good vibes, right? Heading into Game 2. Casey to Smith, take my energy. We already made the video earlier this afternoon talking about how Thatcher Demko is injured and how he's not going to play for the Canucks heading into this Game 2. But what I also wanted to do, just to get the good vibes back out there. You know, I had this thumbnail planned. I wanted to make this video. I was going to make this video until Thatcher Demko decided to shock the hockey world with his news. But today we are talking about Canucks defenseman Ian Cole, because he made himself a comment on the post-game the other day after the Canucks won Game 1 that I thought was really interesting. And it actually has been a pretty discussed about topic on the radio and in different parts of Canucks social media, that I did think this was worth talking about. And sure, it might not be ideal to do this right before Game 2 because I'm setting myself up to be very disappointed depending on what happens. But let's go over to Ian Cole's comments after last night's game on Canucks Central from yesterday. He said this, that I feel like we have the best D-core in the league. And firstly, okay, that's it. That's the video. You can click off if you don't want to listen anymore. Some people really don't like these videos where I go deep into comments and dissect things, but I wanted to talk about this idea of the Vancouver Canucks D-core being as good as it is. Because not only was it Ian Cole talking about this, but Dan Riccio, Satyr Shah, these guys were talking about it on the radio yesterday. This was talked about on Donnie and Dolly post-game after Game 1. This was discussed about on Rinkwide. This was talked about everywhere, but the Vancouver Canucks defense is exactly what Rick Tocchet needs to have success. I'm going to try to reiterate some of the same points. You know, it's all loose off the top of my head here, but when the Vancouver Canucks last season played off against Vegas and the Canucks lost, that's when Rick Tocchet said to the media that part of what made Vegas so difficult to play against was their defense core. They've got big guys, they've got mobile guys, and players that just make your life a living hell if you're an offensive forechecker trying to get one up on them. And you could tell, based off of those comments, that Rick Tocchet kind of wanted that for himself. And so, what did Patrick Allvin go out there and do? He went out there and signed Carson Soucy in the offseason. He signed Ian Cole. They brought Noah Juulsen back. And they traded for Nikita Zadorov. Now you're taking a look at a D-core that, when fully healthy, goes Hughes Hronek up top, which is your smaller, more offensively potent pairing. And then the rest of the bottom four, which are just guys who can play physical, they can play defensively sound. Two of these guys, Myers and Zadorov, are absolute monsters of human beings. They're huge. So whenever they decide to get physical, they decide to rough things up, it makes the opposition's lives so much more difficult. And then Cole and Soucy, I mean, these guys can play physical as well. They play well on the boards. They can get breakout passes out there. Soucy is an absolute monster as well. This D-core is almost exactly what Rick Tocchet needed out of this management group. And the fact that the Canucks were able to reshape their defense over the span of like a year to make it look like this and to make it as competent as this is a sight to behold. I mean, if you take a look at the Canucks defense pairings from, let's say, a year ago. 1 year and a bit ago, because that's how far the archive.org machine goes back. Last year in January, the Vancouver Canucks D-core went as follows. Quinn Hughes and Luke Schenn, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers, and Kyle Burroughs and Ethan Bear. Now, no disrespect to 4 out of the 6 guys that are no longer on this D-core this year, but Luke Schenn, okay, Luke kind of doesn't really belong in this conversation. He's a physical specimen. OEL does not exhibit that hard-to-play-against type of style. He's very offensively potent this year in Florida, but he doesn't have the same defensive stability as a guy like Carson Soucy does, for example. Kyle Burroughs, sure, he's got attitude. He's a dog. He can go out there and play physical. He can block shots, but he's a little smaller. So is that really the guy that you can rely upon to have the same kind of an impact in a playoff series? Plus, his overall talent level and defensive stability, you could debate, is not at the same level as a guy like Ian Cole, for example. And then Ethan Bear on the right side. He wasn't really all too impressive with Washington in the limited sample that I caught of him this season, so I think Nikita Zadorov in that spot is an upgrade. The Vancouver Canucks quickly turned things around on defense, and now You say defense wins championships. This is exactly what they need. You have two guys that can move the puck and do some really good offensive things, and the rest of your D-core that can just shut things down. And that means a lot as well, coming from Ian Cole, a guy who has won 2 Stanley Cups and who has had over 100 playoff games. I don't think people really recognize that Ian Cole is this veteran that he is. I mean, 35 years old, he's already at the tail end of his career, but he has played so many playoff games with Colorado, Carolina, Pittsburgh. Of course, the double Stanley Cups stand out. Even Tampa Bay he was a part of for a while too. Ian Cole, while never being a strict offensive guy, knows what it takes to have a defense core that can step up to the plate and dominate opposition. And that is what he's saying about this D-core when they're so big, so physical. And this is kind of the thing that you have to think about as well. Over the course of 7-game series, this is when you start to get into familiar territory. Guys play off against the same guys. They get used to the same systems. They go out there and match up mostly against the same line. So when you start to jam away in front of the net, or you go out there with a big hit on the boards and you start doing that over and over and over again, guys are all of a sudden going to start second-guessing themselves when they go into those corners to try to fight for the puck. Guys are probably going to get a little bit bruised up and banged up. You know, it's not ideal to see guys get hurt, but that's kind of what you have to do in the postseason. That's how the game is played. The refs put away the whistles, unless you're tripping guys over and over again like some of the Canucks were on Sunday. But still, this is a defense core that is built to do just that. Soucy, Myers, Zadorov, and Cole may not have any super high-octane offensive numbers, but boy, can they move, can they hit, can they play defensively, and can they work together. This teamwork is ultimately what's going to allow the Vancouver Canucks to beat out whatever lies ahead of them in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, the goaltending has to step up too. Thatcher Demko was good in Game 1. Hopefully, Casey DeSmith can be good in Game 2. But I'm very interested in seeing whether or not Ian Cole's claim of the Canucks defense core being the best in the league will hold itself up in Game 2, because Nashville, I mean, as we had talked about in the last video, it didn't really feel like the Preds had too many fantastic grade A chances. They had one at the beginning of the game, Anthony Beauvillier, who walked in on the cross crease. But other than that, I mean, even the goals that were allowed, they were just kind of snipes from a little bit far out. The Preds didn't have too many opportunities in tight, and if the Canucks defense can help hold off that kind of offense on Casey DeSmith, then it bolsters the Vancouver Canucks' opportunities at winning this game. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about how gosh darn good the defense core is for the Vancouver Canucks, and whether or not Ian Cole is right that he feels they have the best D-core in the entire NHL. I feel like there are a few that could go out there and rival that for this season's postseason. I mean, Vegas is the one that comes to my mind right away. Hanifin, Pietrangelo, McNabb, Theodore, Haig, and Whitecloud are all pretty good. Those are like 4 top-tier guys right there. You could also say the same thing about Dallas, especially with the acquisition of Chris Tanev, although they are playing without Joni Hakanpää still, so that's a little bit of a hit to their defense. There are a lot of D-cores, but is Vancouver's the best? You could say they have the best offensive guy in Quinn Hughes. You could debate that when it comes to tough to play againstness, the rest of their defense core is up there too. So do you agree or disagree with what Ian Cole went out there and said? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be back with the post-game coverage of Vancouver-Nashville Game 2 after the game tonight. And bye.